Hey there, it's Karen, and I'm here with Whiskey Sour. Say hello, Whiskey. Nothing. He's not going to say anything. I've wrapped my head around this, that this stuffed animal's not going to talk to you guys. Unlike the woman on Romper Room? Romper Room or Polka Dot Door, one of those two. She'd have that bear beside her, and she'd be like, "What's that, bear? You want to do what?" Or like these kids at home are just, "Bear's not going to talk to you, woman. He's not going to say anything. Give it up." And I didn't like the idea that only she could hear the bear either. That bugged me. So let me know which show that was. Romper Room or Polka Dot Door, one of those. I feel like a good news story today. I always thought it would be very cool to have a TV show called Good News All the Time. And there are some good internet websites that talk about good news. And I try to look for those if I can, because normal news bums me out a lot, and it's stuff I've heard over and over again, and doesn't make me feel any better in my day, and it doesn't empower me, and I've talked a lot about bad news. So I thought I'd share a good news story with you guys. And I had read an article about this man named Dwayne, who he was driving along the Highway 167, and he saw this pickup truck come out and go across a whole bunch of lanes of traffic, and then it sideswiped a concrete barrier, and it continued forward at about 40 miles per hour. And so I was reading it going, 40, that's bad. And then I realized that's 40 miles per hour, that's not 40 kilometers an hour like what I'm used to in Canada. So like I was clipping along. And it was a really good, feel-good story, and I like hearing those because I think there's, just as many of those out there, but it's just they're not sensationalized. We don't get energized the same way like what an emotion like anger or frustration can do to us when we hear a story that frustrates us or angers us. So we tend to not listen to these stories because they just don't invoke the heavy-duty emotions or gossip or bad-mouthing or all the things I've talked about. So this story, Dwayne, he's a manager of Boeing's F-22 fighter jet program. He was the guy that dodged the truck, and he had looked back and he saw the driver slumped over his wheel, and the article said, without consulting passengers in his minivan, he said there was no time to take a vote, and he just kicked into engineer mode. Just, those times in our life where it's just instinct kicks in if somebody is hurt, or, I know I had a family member who had a seizure, and we all just kind of kicked into this mode, and I don't even remember some of it of what happened. So you can see how people just react. Excuse me. And so the quote from this guy, he said, "Basic physics. If I could get in front of him and let him hit me, the delta difference in speed would be just a few miles per hour, and we could slow down together." And he says, we realized he wasn't slowing down, and if he hit someone at full speed, it would have been a very bad scene. The intersection with Southwest Grady Way was a few hundred yards away. He could have very easily, unknowingly, taken out a whole row of traffic. So, here's Dwayne in his car just deciding that he has to make a split decision in the scenario. So he pulled in front of the pickup truck, allowed it to rear end his minivan, and brought both the vehicles safely to a stop in the pull-off lane. It turned out that the driver was an 80-year-old man named Bill, and he didn't know he had had a minor heart attack 2 days before, and then he passed out on the wheel from poor circulation, and his foot was resting on the accelerator. Crazy. Now, this seems like a bad news story, right? The cool part was how Dwayne viewed the whole thing afterwards. He says he felt like this man was very deserving of a few extra lives, seeing as he spends his life doing volunteer work for the Special Olympics and food drives. So here's Bill, this 80-year-old man, didn't know he had a heart attack. It was just a fluke situation that happened where he fell asleep at the wheel because of this circulation thing that had happened as a result, and slumped over the wheel of his car, and was about to do a lot of damage on a major highway. And Dwayne just happened to be at the right place, you could say at the wrong time, but he was at the right place at the right time. And with his training and with his knowledge and just his reaction time, was able to avert a really bad situation. So I also thought it was pretty cool that the insurance company sent a really nice letter to Dwayne, which you'll never hear a good news story about an insurance company. You just won't. And you know, me saying that might even evoke emotions in you to just go off on insurance companies. But here's, you know, the insurance company covered the cost of Bill's vehicle, and then they sent this letter. One of the guys from the office sent a letter to Dwayne just commending him and just saying, you know, what a heroic act that was and very cool. He didn't have to do that. He just did. So I wouldn't say that's the insurance company necessarily. One person in particular there thought about just sending that cool letter to Dwayne. And I thought that was very cool too. So of course it's a great story, but I love that the two men and their wives went out for dinner afterwards. Dwayne's 48, Bill's 80, so you can imagine that their wives are probably, you know, around that age as well, 48 and 80. So you have these kind of two unlikely pairings going out for dinner. And I can imagine the stories that they must have shared as they got to know one another. And I've gone out for dinner with my grandparents, and many of you take your parents out for dinner. But when in life do you get a chance to get to know these unlikely potential friends that we have out there? Of course, we like to meet up with people who are like us, people who are our age or from our town. I've learned that most of my tolerance comes from hanging around people who are actually nothing like me. Growing up, I felt uncomfortable around people who didn't speak English, and it wasn't because I was racist or I had any kind of bigoted attitude, but I simply just didn't know what to say. I didn't know how to communicate. I didn't know how to act around them. You get all weird, you know, just somebody's different than you, and you just like, I don't know what to do with my hands. It's like the Ricky Bobby thing in Talladega Nights. You just start kind of going, I don't know what to do with my hands. Gets all awkward. I didn't know what to say. I didn't know how to act around them, and it was really foreign territory for me. If I saw a homeless person, I would look the other way, not out of lack of compassion, but because I just didn't know what to do with that information coming at me. The elderly people who were at church would freak me out. You know, I just look at them and they freak me out. Like, you're an old person, you freak me out. You know, you're just this little kid. And even Santa Claus freaked me out. I wouldn't even talk around Santa Claus. Somebody in my family would dress up and come into one of our parties or something like that, and I would cling to my mother, and I wouldn't even want to see that guy. Meanwhile, all the other kids are just like screaming and stuff. Just thought it was awesome. No, he freaked me out. He still kind of freaks me out, let's be honest. It's like the clown thing. I'm freaked out by clowns too. We all are. Every single one of us are freaked out by clowns.